We thought we'd left the EU. Well, yesterday, get this, the European Commission approved £20 million in UK state aid to companies in Northern Ireland. I'm joined now by Baroness Kate Hoey to try and make some sense of this. Kate, it's always a pleasure to talk to you, but can we just start with the basics? How, in the name of Merry Jiggins, does there still exist a UK state aid budget from the EU and it's put into Northern Ireland? I thought we'd left the EU.
Well, sadly, Martin, and with more and more people, I hope, are beginning to realise that Northern Ireland has been left, lock, stock and barrel, really, under EU rules and under the EU court. And the latest one that comes out each week, practically, there's something new comes out. This one is that this is UK money. It's not European Union money. But in order for Northern Ireland to benefit from state aid, which the rest of the United Kingdom does, the European Union has to actually agree it. This was all part of the detail of the Windsor Framework, which, as you know, was brought in to protect the EU internal market. And therefore, we had an Irish Sea border introduced. But I don't think anyone really, or very, very few people, looked at the detail and saw just how wide the tentacle, really, of the EU involvement is now in part of the United Kingdom, despite the vote in 2016 that the United Kingdom was going to leave the European Union. That just hasn't happened.
And Kate, you made a very pertinent point when you said, how can any Prime Minister of the UK think this is right? And also there are implications for other territories as well, aren't they, to surrender to a foreign institution like this, and that has implications for other British-controlled areas around the world.
Yes, I mean, it really will go down in history eventually when someone looks at all this, how a British Prime Minister and a British government could have literally be really sold out part of the United Kingdom for no other reason than to satisfy the European Union about a tiny amount of trade that crosses the border into their territory. And my view has always been that if the EU want to protect their internal market, they should jolly well do that in their own territory. But of course, what I also said was that, if this can happen to part of the United Kingdom, a very close-knit to England, Wales and Scotland, then, I would just be slightly wary of being in Gibraltar or being in the Falkland Islands, because frankly, if the government can do this to Northern Ireland, who knows what in the future this not necessarily this government, but a government can do to those territories. And I just do wish that British people would waken up to the fact, those who haven't already, that the Windsor Framework was a complete sellout. It has to go. And there will be no devolution in Northern Ireland again until it has gone.
And Kate, it's 4 years to the day that Boris Johnson won that sweeping 80-seat mandate majority on the ticket of Get Brexit Done. This single piece of evidence you're providing to us here today surely proves we did nothing but get Brexit, and this proves we didn't get the job done at all.
No, and I think there's no doubt about it that if Boris Johnson had stayed, he recognised that they'd signed up to something that was not sustainable and something would have happened. I mean, we just saw it this week with the Rwanda bill. It wasn't going to apply, in theory, they were saying it was applying to Northern Ireland, but once again, we were going to be left out and we were going to be under EU immigration rules, which of course will have all sorts of repercussions for people coming from Northern Ireland into Great Britain. Next thing, they'll be asking to have control for people. We'll have to show our identity as we cross over. So every week something new happens, and it definitely, Brexit has not been done. Northern Ireland had the same ballot paper, and yet they have been abandoned really by the current government, and particularly what's happening at the moment.
And Kate, finally, do you think that the Windsor Framework, the feeling that Brexit wasn't done, the feeling that Northern Ireland is still annexed, and we can still see here the EU still has its tendrils into the area, might that help explain the DUP's votes yesterday against Rishi's bill, Rwanda bill?
No. Well, no, I think Sammy Wilson explained it very well yesterday in Parliament when he spoke, and it was very specifically the section, we are not being able to get removed in the same way that the rest of the UK would be removed if this legislation went through. It may have other problems with it, but it certainly has a problem that Northern Ireland, because of the Windsor Framework and because of being under EU rules, will not be able to be part of it. And I think, the DUP realise that. And of course, anyone who believes in the union of Great Britain and Northern Ireland believes and wants to see it strengthened, could not possibly be supporting things that continually make us further and further apart.
OK, Baroness Kate Hoey, thank you very much for joining us on GB News.